HTML5.
Next, we'll come to the forms. What is the form?
Whenever you have seen that,
we have seen that generally when you open any website, you open
on any of the
Google
website,
form,
and
you
you
have
will
seen
see
that,
that
or
mobile
you are
number
filling
will be
some
there like
sign
that,
up form, right?
plus
You
91,
usually log into
and
the
then
Gmail,
they will
right?
ask you
Or
to first three
registering to the
digit,
Gmail, Facebook. Even
then
you have filled the examination
remaining 4 digit,
form
like this,
in your
depend
VTU
it will be
portal, right?
keep changing.
So
If you
what is
want the
that? That is actually
pattern
it is called as forms. In
to
the
be
forms only,
something
you have to
whatever you
define
want,
all
then
the
you are
input,
going
like
to
either you
use
sign in,
this
sign up,
advanced
submit,
control.
what kind of data you are going to collect from the
And
users,
how you can do
that
that?
will be
So for that,
defined
actually you
under
require
the
the pattern
category of
attribute.
forms. So we
What
have
is
to
the
use the
pattern
form
attribute?
element.
This
In the
way you have
HTML.
to follow. How the pattern
This
will be there?
form, the
If you
input
take a look,
type,
as
the
we are
form
writing the text,
provides the user
placeholder.
with an
Placeholder what?
alternative way
It
to
will be something you are
interact
going
with
to just
web server.
define.
See, the
Something
main
L
thing is
hash,
here.
L hash, L
It
hash,
is
something,
going to
anything you can
interact
give.
with web server.
What pattern
So far,
you
what
want?
we were
The
learning,
pattern will be,
that is not going to
we are
interact with
going
server,
to
anything.
accept in that.
Even now, what we are going to
Only
learn, we'll see further
alphabetical,
how you can
that means
submit the
small
data
A to Z,
into
then
the
0 to 9. Again a
PHP,
small A to
right?
Z, 0
So
to 9.
then only
Again
that
A to Z,
means
0 to
whatever
9.
you are filling,
Only
your
this
name,
pattern
okay,
will be
your
allowed.
email ID,
So
phone
that's why
number,
it is
that
called
needs
as
to be
pattern attribute.
stored in
So
the
whenever you are
server.
going to fill anything in
So
the
that is
input,
actually web server,
I need
and that
in the
we'll
text
see
box that whenever
into
I am
the
going to input
PHP when we are
like,
going to learn. So as of
any
now, we
number you
just
take.
learned that how to create the
So like
forms.
this way, it will be.
So up to now,
pattern attribute.
just we were learning about clicking
now
the
choice
hyperlinks.
There is something called as
And this is
choice
only
control.
mechanism to
How you can
communicate
do
the
that?
server. That means you have a
Generally,
about
we
us
used
button, you have
select,
contact
right?
us button.
The
When you
select
click,
element
it will
will be
take to
used
the
to create
particular page. So only that way we used to
multi-line
do
box
the
for selecting one or
hyperlinks
more items
on the
Like
website.
you have to select one item,
But what happened
or
here
more than
when
that
you
also
use
if you want.
forms? So
If you
forms will
want that
provide
way,
a much
then the
richer
choice control
mechanism.
will be
Why?
you have
Because
to
you are
use this.
going to interact with the web server.
You
Your
are going to
data
give
is going
input
to
type
submit,
same way
and
as
it
a
will be
text.
safe into
Name
the
you have to
server
define
side.
some
Whenever
name.
you are
And
going
list.
to
What is the list type? It
ask
is
any
the
data,
list type
that means
is
whatever you have filled,
cities.
you will be
Right?
able to see that.
Then you are going to create data list.
This
and definitely you have
form
to define ID. Then
will
only
provide
it is going to take
what are the
into
mechanism
the list.
as I mentioned.
Okay.
Mechanism is like
Then
you are
cities,
going to give the
that
text
means
input.
now you are going to define the
You'll be using as
options.
a password input.
So what are the
Option
options
list,
are there? Option
radio
1,
box.
the
You are going to
any
use
country or any
again
state name
for
you can define and close the
checkbox, radio box,
list.
selection
Like
box.
this way you can define
there are a
easily.
lot of things are there. It's
This
totally
is
depend
your
on
choice control.
what are the things you want in the form. Even you want text area to write
Next,
the address.
when you use about the selection list, that is the select list.
That is actually
this
your
select element
form.
Is, as I said,
input.
that it is used to
So this
create
how
multi-line box for selecting
form.
one or more items. So you can select one or more items. You have to select like your native
how the
is
form structure will
one
be
location.
There. When we talk about the form, definitely the
location,
structure
right?
will be there.
Then you want to
the
select
form
two different.
is constructed in
my
HTML.
location.
The same manner we were creating
locations
tables,
right?
or lists.
In that case, you are going to use select. So either you
but here
give
you
the features
having some
to one to select,
elements,
or either you
the
give
form.
the feature to two.
But usually it will be the same.
And
when
this
you
will
want
be
to
happen when you define the option
in HTML,
element.
you are going to use the
tag.
The
options are defined using option element. Then only they can be.
And this form element is like a container
hidden.
That means it
in
is
a
going to
drop-down.
keep something.
Or a multiple
That means like
rows
input box,
the list
check
can
box,
be
selection box.
You will see that whenever
everything
there will be not written in the option.
contained
When you
in
just
that,
click
that's
on
why
that,
it is called
drop-down list will come
container
automatically.
tag also.
That is the actually meaning.
Which
here.
container for
And
the
this
other
option
element
item,
and that will
also
present
you can
various like
group
input element
together.
with the
How
forms,
you can group
plain
together,
text,
you have to use
and other
group.
HTML
Option
elements, whatever
group. If you use
required
this option
in
group,
our
then it will
HTML
all the
program.
option item will be grouped.
So like this way, we are going to.
You can see the example here.
Create.
I'm using the select
basic
name.
You can see the example here.
The name I have
let's
defined as a
open
choice.
any.
Now this is very simple. I have given like option first, second,
the
third,
same
and close the select.
Academy.
Okay.
Okay.
The moment you can see that the first, it will appear like this way.
right? Registration process.
When you click on that, it will show you first, second, third,
like
choice.
Login.
The drop down will appear. Right?
Okay,
if you give the another attribute in that, size is equal to 3, that means it will display up to 0, 1, 2, 3. Total 4 element. It will display.
Okay, I have logged out,
right? First, second,
the
third,
moment
fourth,
you logged out,
it will display,
and then you will be able to see
next,
that
as I mentioned, right? You have
what
to
login
give
is there? Login with email.
Different way.
So when you click on login with email,
okay,
that is nothing.
Now what you want?
It is the
Like
form only here.
In
so
India,
how you can see that? Just
we have several
right
states
and
we have several
when
cities.
you click on inspect,
right? How generally you
you
fill
will be able to see there
India.
Definitely there will be.
You will select the country India, then state Karnataka, and then you select the state. Sorry, cities Bangalore, anything like that. Okay. The same way, if you want to define the cities into the particular state or district, then you have to go with the opt group, because take example Bangalore, right? In Bangalore also so many regions are there, right? Then you can define the similar way, or you give the Bangalore. In Bangalore, what are the cities? So this you have to define opt group,
Angular.
give some label name.
So anything, whenever you see that,
top,
even if
and
I open
below that, it will be there whatever the option you are going to give to the users.
Facebook.
So you can give this. Okay. So one opt group is closed.
If you open the Facebook,
again you need another opt group. Inspect. You can define another opt group. Then you can close the,
because might be they will define the form, or they
this
use
way
a different
you can
technique,
use
like
the
division
select element, and it's totally depend on the developer and as per your application requirement. It's not like that only I should use this one or we should not use this. It's totally depend on
see on the
how you are going to
form class is equal
develop
to defining some class data. Okay.
Now
and where your data
which
is going
value
to be
will
submit,
be sent, right?
You can see
now
here.
Question will be there how the value is going to be sent, right? There is a value attribute.
Your data is going to submit.
When you are selecting this, that is actually your value, right?
Login /
the value attribute of the option element is used to specify
now in encrypted format the data will be submit to this location.
Value.
So that means it is which location, whatever the form page will be there, this will be in encrypted format.
That means when you are selecting what value you are going to send to the server. And this value attribute actually is optional.
Any login system
and if it is not specified,
so same way here the form structure, whenever you are going to define the form, you have to use the tag as a form
instead of that.
Then you are going to write the another
like this way
attribute.
You can see the example here. I have defined.
Generally we use two types of method here. One is we use
this
method
select command,
and another one you use post.
This select command you are giving the choice as a first, second, third. Okay, and I'm going to select the second.
Generally
I have selected second.
We'll see that also.
The moment you select
the
second,
get and post.
what will happen?
Okay,
and see this is I have used here. That
why you are going to use action
inside the server,
because
the request will go
somewhere your data
choice set
need to be submit, right?
The another you can see that the another way
their action.
I've given choice
where you are going
I've given option value is equal to 1 first, 2
and
second,
you can define
third.
Because you are
that
going
means when
to
you select second
server,
that means option value 2 that is choice
PSP
2
script,
the choice
or even you
go.
can write as we have
not
just now
the
seen
value will go because you are defining
format
internally
define
what should be going to be defined there.
Then you can
field set this way you are able to use
this is the field set. Okay, we have used
to the server.
Okay, then we are using listen.
This is actually
the details,
and this how we
then another
whenever
paragraph
you submit any data
in that
like
label.
This way only it will
whenever you want to define the title like this,
you have to practice. Then only you will get to know
you
that
are going to
how
use this
label.
Request
And when you want
goes
to the server,
field,
and especially
you
will
are going
get to know when
define
you will learn about the PHP.
See that I am using input,
because in whatever you are learning HTML and CSS
text
or
some
name you have to define.
Even you have to
data,
define later
it will not
some ID
stored
you are going to interact with the server. That is
the
name
difference.
And ID should also be defined. Same way, another paragraph I want
now
as
you have something called radio button, right? You have seen that
multiple choice
to select the
giving
gender,
level
right?
as a
you
country,
will be having a like button like
the
this,
level as a country
to select.
Then what I want selection box.
Again,
so when you want a selection box,
select female,
another
right?
element is there called
so
select
like this,
and
this is actually called as radio button.
Okay.
In radio button,
the
what
moment
happen? you
give
are
where,
going to
that
select
means it will
only
show
one at a time. You cannot
location.
select
And
both,
what
right?
option you are going to give?
The choice you
I'm
cannot
going
have
to
when you
use
select
here
this one,
different option.
one,
Like choose a country,
this you cannot
whatever the
select.
country
Or
name.
if you select
You have
this,
seen that
this
generally
you cannot select.
for
That is radio
different
button.
states, right?
Okay.
Like,
And now let's
Karnataka, Tamil Nadu,
the radio
Andhra
button are
Pradesh,
very useful.
whatever you
when
want,
we
you can
want
define, and then you will be able
to
to
the
see
user to select
states,
a single
right? And same way,
item, as I
at
said,
last,
right?
there will be a
item
submit button.
from
So what will
list
happen with the
of
submit
choice.
button? The
And
moment you
want
hit
all
on the
choice
button,
to be visible,
where it is
right?
going to
I am
submit,
showing that
obviously the moment you hit submit,
users has to
this will
select
go to the
their
process.csp
gender
and it
category,
will get
that is the
submitted.
male or female. So it is
And
all
you will see. So
everything
next,
is
what they will do
visible
in
right?
this process.php, they will write the server side
from the
code.
list.
Okay, and the moment it
When
gets
you want to
submitted, you will
use
get the
this
message. Thank you for your submission.
radio button,
Or
then you have to use
our
same
team
way
will revert back,
input
something
type
like this.
radio.
So that how
Sorry,
only
type is equal to you
this,
are going to
the
define
form
radio.
structure
This element
works.
will
This
give
is
you
a very
the
basic
radio
example.
button. And this button
And
are
as I mentioned that
exclusive.
how
That
the
means
form will interact with the
what
server.
happens?
It's very
Only
simple.
one can be chosen.
The
as
user
I said, right?
is there.
You cannot
right?
choose
The user
both
will
at
fill
a
the form,
time.
right? So you will be
Right?
seeing this.
So this is the benefit.
What you will do?
Or you
You will
say that
request to the server. Okay. So this form will
depend on the
appear to
every
you.
developer.
Okay.
How
And you are
need,
going to fill.
then you
The
are going to
moment
define
you
accordingly.
fill and submit,
And
so
at
that
the
is
same time,
still you are giving
one
request.
attribute you are going to
Now
select.
it will go to the
checked
PHP
attributes used to
application. So this
indicate
is
the
server.
default choice.
In server side, what you are doing?
If you
You are
define
writing
something
some
checked
script,
attribute,
right? That means
then also
it is going to be
by
stored
default,
as a
you
form
might
of
be have seen that
database,
whenever
or you are going to fill any form
into the Excel sheet. And if it is in
totally
India, by
on
default,
you.
first
Okay.
country
So
will be
this
India.
request is usually for
In the
some types of
multiple
server scripting.
In radio button
and that
also
will
it happens.
process your
Somewhere it will
data.
be there like you are going to select only like by default gender male will be there.
And the moment data is submitted,
right? That how you can
and when you are going to,
and
when
the
you want
value
the data
works
to
in
be
the same
right?
manner.
So again you give the request,
within the
data will appear.
option
Otherwise
element.
Okay. So this is general process.
Next,
you give the request
checkbox, right? What is the
server will
checkbox?
fetch the data.
Like this is
okay,
your
that means
checkbox.
first
you
it will
have
display.
you can select
so what
this is the
data you want,
multiple
it has displayed,
right?
Okay. Then you are going to fill the
see
form.
that, right?
So you are filling the form.
Suppose I ask the question that okay.
So third step again
you
in the
have to
PHP,
select,
if you have the code like
what are the
where
subject
the
you have
user
submitted,
can see
right?
that what
And
data has
I
submitted,
can give some 10 subject
also
list here.
can be
Then you have the
display here. So what you have to
suppose
do
only you have
again in the
studied 5,
PHP,
then you can
and again there will be a
checkbox
display
2.
here.
Suppose you have
there
studied
will
only
be
2. Or if you have studied
stage,
4, you can give
that
4.
display will
So
come.
this is a checkbox.
Your
So you
title,
can select
that means your
one
title,
or
country
more than
country
I. That is actually your checkbox.
Like this way, we
same way,
generally
checkbox
design the
are
HTML
used to
form,
getting
and
yes
this way
or no
it
or
will interact
on
with the
off
servers.
That is also that way you can use, right?
Now, when we talk about the query
the checkbox are added.
We should know
the syntax
this
is
thing
input type is equal to checkbox
proceeding with the
and you can
form
also group
creation.
checkbox together by sharing
What
the
is the
same
query
attribute
strings?
for the all group.
It means what information you are going to send to the
checkbox
server
will have its value.
If you take a look on the
server. If you are
Facebook,
selecting only one,
okay,
it will send.
I'll go to network as I mentioned.
Like with the radio button, the check attribute you also can use to set the default value. Even you can set default value here also. It totally depends on you.
I'll just refresh this page.
It's a check.
You will see here some
now you have
will happen.
button control.
Okay? It will open some site.
Every form. Whenever you are going
now
to
design
see that,
right?
Form,
so when the moment you open the Facebook page, what happens?
Submit button.
These many scripts are getting open in your
bottom.
See,
submit,
the Facebook
hit
200. Okay, right. This is the document. That is HTML or PHP document.
So that submit button will be
then
there, right?
Another style sheet submit button. You can see the structure. Style sheets are there. Then you have some script.
There are several.
This is the script
control you can
they are
use.
using.
Like
they're using a different kind of a script in the home.
So whenever your form data
kind of, you can see that all
when you hit on submit, it
so
will send
the
to
moment you hit here, you can see here.
If suppose whatever the form I have filled, I want to reset.
Paste.
Whatever the data is entered, it need to be cleared. Again, manually we will go and erase from each text box, each line. Then that will be text times, right? So better use directly a reset. There will be a button. You can use here button as a reset.
And I will give the password.
It depends whatever you want. You can define. The moment I click on reset, whatever the form I have, all the data will get reset.
So now what I'll do, I'll click on the login.
Next,
now you see the again
input
what
type
result will
to button. So this is a custom button you can create. And when you are going to use this button, then you have to write JavaScript coding for
this is actually your query string.
Again, you have to define
that
ID,
means
and accordingly what functionality you
is
want
submitting
for this button,
the information,
you have to
hit on
define
login
in JavaScript.
After login, what happened?
The same way
you have seen right in the form
you can
I have
create
shown
the
you
custom
just now.
submit
The
button
form
that
submission
uses
where
for
it will
the
go. So it
image
will go to the privacy
display.
mutation
When you
token,
want to
some
display the
encrypted
image
format.
then that also
It will go there and it will check. So
and
this is
the last
successful.
one,
It went.
as we seen that
But
button.
what data you are
So as we are
submitting,
creating
that
the
query need to be
button
passed. So how you
or
are it is going to be passed?
different
You can see
control.
there. This is your
Then what
encrypted
happened?
data.
When
that
you
is going
define
to be
button,
passed
then
to the
definitely you are going
Facebook
to write the
server.
JavaScript,
And when it matches to
can
the Facebook database,
display
then only this will
as
get
per your
So
requirement.
that is the your query string you are
And
passing into the
the
URL.
way
So
you want to
URL
change,
you have to pass
you
the
can
query string.
include in that
So
both
either you
text
want
you
in
can
encrypted
include,
format
you can
or
include
you want
image, you can include
normal format. It's totally
you can
depend on the
escape
users.
also.
So
And
generally
the
any
server side will
application, even
process the
banking
entire
application, if you see that
using the
if you do the net banking,
that is the
even
actually
there you will
benefit of
just
the
observe this URL.
your
That
custom
is actually your query string. You will get to know that
button.
okay, this is a in encrypted format. It is getting
Next,
passed.
some
So that is actually called
specialized
as your
control.
query
Like
string.
you have seen
what
that
query you are the user
it will generally
is going
ask to
pass
submit your
to
photograph,
the
right? You
browser.
have seen in the many form. You have also
That's what
filled
the browser package
VTU form.
packages the user
Starting
data
the first time when you
input
did registration
into
online,
something
it has been
as
asked that
query string.
to submit your
So in the
upload
browser
your photographs
URL, what you are going to pass,
or
that
you,
is your
some
user
website it
data
asks to
as a
upload
input.
your resume,
That is
your
called as
profile,
actually
right?
query
Or upload your marks card. Then how it happened?
And
It
this
happened
query
with the
string
file upload
is
control.
a series of name is
And
equal to value.
What
You
you
have
are
seen
going to
that,
see
right?
here? We are
You are
going to see
giving
here it is two
some
important
name, right?
additional
Something you are giving
form
is
control
equal to
that
some
will be
value you are
available
giving.
in the all
Right?
browsers.
Path, this is the path
Okay.
where it is. But then what is that? Name and
How you
value.
can,
What name
you
is
can
there?
use this
Privacy
same way
mutation
form.
token.
We are
And
going
it is
to
encrypted
give
format. Some
method is
value
equal to
is there.
post, and you have to define
The names
here
in query string
in city
were
type.
defined in by HTML forms.
type.
So whatever the name you are
ENC.
defining, that
And
is by
what is that?
HTML
It's a
form. That is the
multi-part
form name you can define. Like I am
and
defining
whatever
to
the other
understand this
element
one.
you want, other control,
Okay.
definitely
And the
you are
query
going to
string
submit,
have certain
then you have
rules
to give the
defined
other
by
element over
HTTP
here,
your protocol.
right?
So definitely there will
This
be
how
certain rules because
you can
if you open that,
use the
if you not
different
keep the encrypted format, what happen in the
mechanism, that
browser
means different,
cache,
attribute
the
over
data
here.
will be available.
Then you
and
are going to write
attackers
whatever you
can
want
attack
to
on your
write to
system,
in the
and
form
they
you
can,
can
or
write.
even any of your
Then
friends
label,
if they want
upload
to
a
take
travel photo.
revenge from you, they know that okay, you are
Give the
using
input
Facebook
type.
on system.
Now
Okay, I'll
you
go
can
and
see
take the
here
password.
input type is
So
going
anyone
to be
can see
changed because we are going to upload
that how it is there.
file.
So that's why
So
they
you have to give
encode the
file
URL
in the type,
and then
earlier
they
we
pass
used to
to
give
the
text
server.
or button, whatever.
So
Now we are going
certain
to
characters
the file.
such as space
And name is equal to photo. So this
punctuation
place you are going to
symbols,
upload the
okay,
photograph,
foreign
and similarly you close
character
the form.
cannot be part
Like
of
this
the
way this form
query string. Obviously you cannot give the
upload
space.
control is there.
You cannot give the space between this, like
Next,
space.
the second one,
It will not
you
take,
have
right?
the number
this,
and
it will not take any special,
especially
like
in HTML5
punctuation
they
symbols,
introduced
that also will not work. Some foreign characters
new control
wherein
for
that
the
those things are not work.
accepting
So it have certain
numeric
rules.
value.
It has
Then
to
you
be
are going
followed.
to give the numeric value.
So same way
how you can
are
give,
going to
you have
this
like this way you can
so
define
this is the things
type is equal to
into
number
the query string,
and you can give number 1 to 5. So only it will be there number 1 to 5 into
and
the
whatever
like
you are going
option.
to, so instead of that you are going
1, 2,
to
3, 4,
use
5.
some symbols.
That is
and
one
it
way.
should be
Second way you have seen
encoded.
that right in like
Okay,
how you
so now what
click
we'll
on
do
the
here,
VLC
you
player
can
or
see here
YouTube
the
player
example,
that
right?
just
How
to
the URL
increase,
going to be
to move further, right? The same way that is here.
Input type text, right? And you are giving
here
the
it will
name
be
as
there.
I said, right?
You can
Always
define
you are going
the
to
0 level here. You can
name.
define
Okay.
5. So
So
define the
here it is
rating
defined.
or how you
Okay.
like the class or
Now,
give the feed. So rating will be from 0.
even
here 1,
when you are
2,
using
3. So you
select
can move that tag
slider
to
to
tell here.
even
That
you are
means
giving
it will
name
be
is
moved.
equal to
So how
where.
you can define that?
Some
When you are
names
going to
everywhere.
define, then you are going to give
when you
type
pass
is equal
this
to range.
to the
It
URL,
will range from
even
where
if you going
0
to
to
submit,
10. Then you are going to
what
give
will
minimum
happen
is equal to
on
0,
the URL
maximum is
you will
equal to
be
10. And every
able
step
to see
how much
that
it should increase.
title is
Step
equal to
1. That
whatever
means
the title
1,
you are
2, 3,
submitting,
4,
I have
5.
filled like central
If
part.
you change here
So
step
central,
5,
I have
then 0,
given
5
the
and
space
10.
between the
And
central
you
space
define
part.
some
So when
name,
it is going to
definitely you have
submit in
to give.
URL, it will take plus, right?
Like this
Then
way,
park
you can
and
control
where is equal
the
to
element,
unit.
and
Even you can
display
see
the
in different way
kind of
the
numbers
result
and range
Let's
using the
open
input control in
Google.
your
Okay.
HTML.
Now I am going to
forms.
search.
Like
now color.
when you want something to give to the color option,
okay?
right?
Now I'll hit
Then
enter.
you have seen that,
Now
right?
you see
Generally,
there in
when
the
you use the
query string,
MS
see,
Paint,
search is
Microsoft
equal
Paint,
to,
you will see
here,
this kind
right?
of
the search
diagram
is
to
equal
select
to
the color.
I have
When
given
you want
web
to give the
space technology,
color
so web
facility into the
plus,
HTML,
then
and
how you are going to
technology.
do? Now
Very
sources,
simple.
what is the source?
Change
That
the
is we are
type is
using
equal to color, HP lab,
and name
that
is
is the
equal to
whatever
black.
that I given the some
Will
name.
be there.
The
Some
moment if you give
numbers,
this
some
way, you will be
encrypted
having
format.
here like
So
this
it is
way.
going to cache
Okay,
the entire
and
information.
the moment you
of
click
the
on
same,
that,
from which
it will
IP
appear
address,
a pop-up
which MAC
to
address
change the color.
particular
You can
search
change
is happening.
any color.
This entire
like
things
this
will
way.
be taken
This
by
is the
the
things.
Google.
And this way,
So that's what it is there.
have
So query string will be submitted like
background
this.
color
Okay.
to select for the particular
And
text. So this
the
is
moment you hit
color
submit
input
button, as I
control.
said, right? So like this way.
When you want
If you
date
use
and time,
encoding
suppose you want to
formats,
define
what
date
happen?
and time, that
It
also
will,
can be done.
as you can see that, right?
To do that,
So notice
you have to use
how the space,
date,
if you are giving the space, obviously
time,
the space will be used.
date
So
time
here only
together,
one is there. So
date
space
time
plus,
local,
plus,
month,
if you are
week.
using
If you
any
define
character,
date,
then it
that
will
means it
convert
will
into
create
the
a
special
general
character, that is the
date
HTTP
input control.
protocol.
Like
And then it will encode,
it is
and
the
then it
newest
will
format,
be submit.
year.
I have
That
used
means
here. You can see here I have used
2021,
here different
month,
format.
05,
Okay, different
date
symbol.
is
So that will
25.
get encoded. Okay, and
If
this
you want
complete line
time,
will get
then time will be again,
This
it will
is
be
actually your
in input
encoding.
control, hour, minute, second. Hour,
Now, what are
minute,
the form
second.
elements we
If
have?
you give
The
date time
most
together,
important thing,
it will create
when
a
you do
control
the
which give you the
URL
both
encoding, and
date
when you
and
want
time,
to
both it
submit
will
the
give.
form, that is the
Same way,
essential that
next
you are going
month.
to
If you want
use
to only
action
select month,
element,
so
right?
it will be,
It is
it
very
will not
important.
come only
That
month,
means
it will
action
come
and
with
method
year
is
and
very
then
very important.
followed with the year.
Without
It will
that,
come.
your data is not
Week,
going to. Without
it
action,
will create
your
the
data will
control
not submit it.
which can, and
With
where the
method,
user can
your
specify a
URL
week of year.
encode
That
and
means
decode
year,
will be the
and you can give
if
the
you
particular.
not give,
You cannot
so
give
that
only
also by
month.
default it will take,
But
but
it totally
you have
depend
to
on the
hide
how
that.
you want
So
to display
hide and display,
to the
those two
users.
comes into the using the get
You
and
can see
post
that
method.
calendar.
Okay,
Right?
so the
When
first
you
is
want the
action
calendar to be
attribute,
displayed, right?
it will
Simply you just give
specify
date,
the URL
you change the
of
input
the
type
server
equal
side.
to
That
date.
means it will
Automatically
define the
this
URL which
calendar
is
will
going
appear
to
like
be
this.
hit into the server side.
If you
And
change
it will process your
type
data.
to
Whatever
time,
I have filled the
then you
form,
can see that
that
what is
will
happening.
process to
Only
the server,
time is good,
and it
going
will
to
give you
appear.
the
Right?
result.
When
So
you
which
give date
data
time
you are going
together,
to submit,
you
where
can
you are
see
going
here,
to submit,
date also is
how
coming,
it will define,
time is also
definitely
coming, and it's
it will
coming as a
define
UTC format,
by
the general normal UTC timing. You have to
the
change to UTC
action button,
5
right?
plus, then only Indian time will be there.
Next, you
If
have
you
method.
give date time
What is the
local,
method
that
attribute?
means what
The
are
moment
the
you use
server
method
time
attribute,
specified,
now it is
that
going to
time it will
specifies that,
and
the,
if you
how your
specify
query
month,
string data
then
will be
only
there.
it start from like
You
March
want to
2000
transmit
data like this.
from the browser to
This
server.
way you can define
So it should be
the input
visible
control
into the
for
URL,
the
or
date
it should
and
be hidden.
time.
So there is a two techniques, that is the get and post. In get it will be visible, post it will be not visible. Okay, and the action attribute, okay, as we mentioned, okay, same thing it is written here. Okay, and this, as I said, the same thing. Okay, I have repeated here. Okay, so you have to use get and post. It is compulsory, you should use, then only you will be exact data. Whatever you want to see the what I am submitting, for the practice you can use the simple like get. If you don't, if you want to hide, then you are going to use post. It's not like that get means okay, it will be not display, it will not get submitted. So generally, as we mentioned, the form data sent using post method, okay, and get method usually when you are testing or developing a system, okay, since you are examining the query string directly into the browser address
bar. Okay. So what will happen? What is the mean that when you are going to use form data to send, we have to use post. But when you are testing on your system, a developer, right? When the developer is going to use, then definitely it will be in the get method, because you will see that, okay, what error, if anything problem is happening, then you can check that. Okay. So that is actually your get method. So every time whenever you want to test, you can use this on your machine. Okay. Not on the real time. That is the best way. Since the get method uses the URL to transmit the query string, as I said, right? And the form data will be saved when the user bookmark the page. What it mean that? That means when you are submitting, hitting the submit button, and generally we have that, okay, I want to, next time I don't want to go to Google every time, and want to use this to be just type. I'll just use bookmark. I'll just select, it will get open. Okay. So how you are going to use? That is, you have to use and you have to define. Okay. So that's why if you bookmark the page, what will happen? You will be able to see the next moment when you open this, it will be visible to the user. Anyone who open, they will be able to see your data. So that's why this is the security risk, and your data can be leaked. That information can be leaked. So even the attackers will attack on your browser. They will send some malware. You will open that. They will be able to read your browser and information, that is cookies, and they will catch the data and they can. That's why generally the sometimes people say that my email ID was hacked, my Facebook is hacked. How come? Because and until you are not going to do the mistake, it will not happen, right? So that how it is there, and it will happen like this only. Okay. So this you have to think when you are going to develop any piece. As I mentioned, action. So action will specify the URL, that is where you are going to submit the data. Method, it will specify that you are going to use HTTP method of get and post. When you define the name, it will denote the name of the form. And when you use, sorry, when you use target, that means the target address in the action attribute that you have to define. Okay. Like this way, this will, your form will work. So you can see here, we'll see in the practice also. So here when you use form method, you can see here I'm using like get. Okay. So I've used here method is equal to get. Okay. And action. When you perform the action, so what happened in the HTTP protocol, it will show get process, whatever the title you are going to submit, it will, everything is visible. Okay. The moment you use post method, so what happened in the server side, it will take like the same what form you have used, the date, the host name, user agent, that means which browser you are using, content length, and it will submit to the server side. Okay. So this is the your query string, the difference between get and post. This way you can use. Then when you talk about what is the advantage when I use get, what is the disadvantage? So a little bit you can see the few difference here. When you use the get, the data can be clearly seen the address bar, and it is also a disadvantage. Advantage also is there when you are developing the portal. So I'm not able to find out where my data is going to submit. So definitely that time you have to use get only to find out. But when you are going to the live production server, you should not use. That is one thing. Second advantage, data remains in the browser history and cache. Whatever you are going to use, it is there available into the browser history. And data can be bookmarked. Okay. The limit on the number of character in the form data will be returned. So you can be able to see that easily. Okay. Then when you talk about the post, data will contain binary data, okay, and it is hidden from the user, and the submitted data will not store into the cache, history, or bookmark. This is the, and you go and see that any website, wherever you have even Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whichever website you open, definitely there will be the post method. Very few they will use get method. So like that way, and you have to be very safe when you are browsing. You have to see that the technology is getting increased. Obviously, the security also matter a lot. And these are the form control elements. So this form control element you have to use, okay, and you have to use like button. If you want button, then you can use button also. When you want data list, that means in HTML5 actually it is defined, okay, and when you want some data list you can define. When you want to define field set, that means if you want to group related element in the form together, so whenever you are defining all the elements and you want all the element to be grouped together, then you have to define with the field set, okay. Then as usual form, we know that input for the input text box, okay, and when you are going to use label, that is just defining the name, the legend, that is the defining the label for the field set group, option when you want multi list item, okay, opt group, that means when the group of related option and you are going to select multiple option, then in that way, then you want to use selection box, you want to use text area, that means you want to fill the address, then you can use here, okay. So this how you can use the several different kind of form control in your web programming. And what are the text input control? Because when you want text, like I'm defining input type as a text, so the first one you have text, so normally the text only one line single line entry will be there. When you want multiple line, as I said, address, so that comes into the text area when you want to create multiple lines, and you have to define the text area, rows is equal to 3, so 3 rows will be there, and 3 rows, 4 rows, that means that's why it is multiple span will be there, and this way you can use. When you are defining password, sorry, when you are defining the password, when you give anything input the input box, it's similar to the input box, but what happen, and also it will be a single line only, so when you are entering that and you define the password, what will happen, it will be easily, you'll be able to get to know that, okay, the it will be like a star dot dot dot, you have seen that, right? It will be not visible. And search, if you want any search box to be displayed, then you have to use input type is equal to search. So whatever the query string you are going to pass, it depend on the query string, and this you can use, and this is actually your HTML5 element, the search. The same way you have email, if you want to accept the email ID into the input, then you are going to use input type is equal to email, again it is the single line text entry, okay, and this is also one of the HTML5 element. And some device like iPhone will provide specialized keyboard for this element, okay, and when you are going to fill, obviously it will take only @ email ID. If you not give the @ email ID, it will not take, like this way. Next, if you want a telephone number, mobile number, then you can use this also. This is also HTML5 element, okay, and same way type is equal to telephone. So the telephone number have the different format. Again, you have to define the different JavaScript how you are going to accept the phone number, like +91, then four numbers,
then again 6 number, or you want first 3 number, then 4 number, how you want that, again you have to define. It's totally depend on the developer. Then URL, that means if you are going to accept any URL, so this is also a single line entry text box. Okay, and this is also one of the HTML5 element, and this, with the moment you submit, the URL will be submitted to the form, whatever this comes into the text input control. You can see here, when I'm giving input type text, the text box will be there. When you are giving text area, so you can see here you have the some number of rows is will get increased. Same way you can define the text area. If you give the password, input type password, the moment you enter the password, it will come star star star, right? When you give the email ID, okay, so email ID, if you give only some name in Opera browser, it will show you like this way. When you use Google Chrome, it will say that please enter a email address. The same way URL, if you give, and if you are writing something, it will tell them please enter the URL. This is the difference between all the text input control.